I'm Peter from the Daily Rios.
I'm Eric from Longbox Review, and this is episode 34 of Peter and Eric's Legion Project podcast. Hello and welcome to the Legion Project podcast. I am your host, Eric.
And I'm your other host, Peter.
And we are here to discuss issue 34 of the third volume of the Legion of Superheroes, which is chapter 3 of the Universo project, where the imprisoned Legionnaires struggle to return to Earth, but the rest of the team has disbanded. Dun, dun, dun.
Great. That's about all you need to know.
So, whoa.
Awesome. Okay,
Wait a minute.
Let's say goodbye.
Peter,
live the Legion.
There's so many pages in between those covers.
Oh,
what are you talking about? There's so much to talk about.
Really? Okay. We have to?
Ooh. I haven't seen you or heard you talk about an issue like this in a very long time, if ever.
And we don't talk about what we feel about this issue until we start recording. So should be fun. Don't judge a book by its cover, right? But in this case, the cover is beautiful. But everything else, okay, we're gonna find out. Dun dun dun. Stay tuned.
I love it when Peter throws me a curveball like this.
Oh God. What else are we talking about, though? Let's start with some other stuff that'll frustrate me, probably.
I was gonna say something along those lines. So yeah, we do have we have a bit of Legion of Superheroes news that broke in December, right before the holiday. So this comes from Brian Michael Bendis, his newsletter, and he posted on December 20th. That the Legion of Superheroes is currently in the works at HBO Max for an adult animated series. So based on, of course, his and Ryan Sook's Legion run, that 12 issues that they did, which is controversial here at the Legion Project podcast. So I do have, if you don't mind, Peter, I did gather the information directly from Bendis's newsletter here. I'll read a bit of this, then we can talk about it. So Miracle of Miracles, HBO asked if there's any DC properties I thought would make an interesting show. I may have yelled the word Legion louder than you want to in a normal adult person business meeting. At the moment, it is being developed as an adult animated show. And I will say he clarified this in his following newsletter, that it was possibly dealing with adult themes, not what some people thought adult meant. So the fact that he had to clarify that is just ridiculous. Anyway, he goes on. I've been working on it for a while, and earlier in December, when he wrote this, I was sent to the next phase. Animation takes a long time, so you may not hear anything about this for a while. But in the meantime, you can read the comic book version. He's such a huckster of these amazing characters, both in our most recent series and in some of the greatest comics ever made. And with those words, Peter, he linked to the 5 Year Later omnibus. What does that mean?
Oh. You can't adapt that without precedence. Oof. Yeah, this whole thing, he's right. Animation has a long gestation, I usually don't like to talk about things that aren't going to show up for another year, if not 2. I don't know what the adult aspect really entails, The 5 years later, you can certainly say dealt with adult themes.
Mm-hmm.
I think my initial thoughts are, is Bendis and Sook's Legion, is that the Legion I want out there?
Exactly.
The
yeah. Yeah.
Apparently they showed up in Young Justice recently. I saw somebody post an image on Twitter of like Saturn Girl and maybe Chameleon Boy. I don't know, but they looked not like we know them as. So
yeah, I actually I've only seen the first episode of the latest season of that show, and there is very clearly a Legion connection that they even were pushing in that first episode. But I don't remember seeing the characters. However, I think I saw some similar things like on Twitter or something saying the same thing. So yeah, I'm curious to see how that develops and what exactly that means in terms of the Legion. It's very interesting. That's the Sook Bendis Legion run is the most recent one, so that makes sense from a publishing standpoint. And if they're going to adapt something, well, here's this. Bendis is a name, even outside of comic book land. So I totally see why they would just carry that through. But yeah, to your point, is that really the Legion that they should be promoting?
Yeah.
And that's not to say that necessarily that this Legion that we are talking about is the Legion they should promote. Although I would probably agree with that. It should be, but because there's so many other different versions of the Legion, and some of them I've particularly enjoyed over the years, even more so in some cases than this volume.
Mm-hmm. And there are, we've had a Legion cartoon. It was aimed at younger viewers. Had a whole bunch of different characters. The first season and the second season had two very distinct different arcs. Even some of the tone shifted from first season to second season.
Yeah, that got darker.
Yeah. And you wonder, I don't know what was going on around that cartoon, so I don't know why it wasn't necessarily a major hit. When you think of something like Justice League Unlimited and Justice League, when that universe, the Batman anime, all that stuff just, thrived. Young Justice thrived in its own way. That Legion cartoon didn't necessarily thrive. So they love to play with this whole multiverse thing. It would be interesting that even if they develop a new Legion cartoon, that it would maybe have some ties to that older Legion cartoon just for selling points, oh, we want to sell some more DVDs. Just make a mention or two of that old one, And then you can have people come to it new, older viewers. You can try to connect some things in. You mentioned about Bendis's name. Does Bendis have a name in other media that we know of? Are his property? I mean, there was the Powers TV show, but
that's what I was talking about. But you're right. That was a very limited scope, so to speak.
Yeah.
It was like on the PlayStation Network. Is that right?
I don't even. Yeah, it was somewhere where I couldn't see it.
But but it's still, I could totally see, and I've heard stories from people that work in Hollywood that, it was a thing that was produced, and you could look, point to that and go, look what I did, look what I created, right? So that's kind of why I said that, I guess.
I don't know if all the worlds, all the pieces are, going to mesh, it certainly didn't mesh for the Titans TV show. That's a disaster, you know, and as many fans as that has all internationally, those of us who love those characters because of that initial volume are looking at this show and saying, I don't know what this is. So, sure. They're thriving to get a new Batman animated series. There's some other DC property, I think, that's getting an animated series. So I understand they have this HBO Max channel. They need content. And there's a plethora. So I think the Legion could be a viable property in other media. I think you should hand it to people who understand teams, character, who understand characters that are meant to represent basic elements or basic powers. Give it to the people who understand that Power Rangers has been a success for how many decades, because ultimately, and I am not a Power Rangers person, so I'm going to get this wrong. But every time I watch it, there's a yellow one, there's a pink one, there's a blue one, there's a black. Legion of Superheroes. There's a fire one, there's a sun one, there's a one who can fly. It seems like it should just write itself in when you think in those terms. Yeah,
very simple concepts, distinct concepts between the characters, and then you just add some personality onto it with each of the characters, right? It's perfect for kids, and if they do it right, for adults as well.
Yeah, I mean, Sailor Moon, Sailor Jupiter, Sailor Neptune, Sailor Uranus, whatever. I mean, it just Voltron. That Netflix Voltron cartoon was amazing, and again dealt with a blue lion, a red lion, and the characteristics that you have to fly each one. Like it just, I feel like the Legion, that's how you have to look at the Legion of Superheroes. You have to look at it as core concepts and create a threat that needs those core concepts to unify, to defeat, and make it no more and no less than that. Because if I don't know what Bendis has planned, but if you try to think of it in comic book terms, it's not going to work on TV. I don't think.
Well, and if you look at the 12-issue run that has been published, I can't think in those terms that you just described what that series was about. It was a lot of action, a lot of things were moving, a lot of characters were there, but there was no overall or uniforming state of affairs throughout the whole thing, and that's where I think it just kind of got lost. I think he kind of got lost in that the multitudinous of the Legion, and the story wasn't there.
Yeah. Take what you just said, and those are my thoughts about 34. Yeah, and again, we're talking about something that may not see the light of day.
That's true,
if at all. But we wanted to, we certainly want this property out there, and yeah, I guess not everything not everything's going to succeed. But maybe they'll take a chance, and we'll see what happens.
Well, just like with our precious comic books and the Legion in particular, Peter, all we have to do is wait for the next one.
That's true.
And we might get a great one.
Yeah. We don't have many years left to be waiting for that, so they better get it out here quickly.
Very true.
That comet is coming. The comet is coming.
Oh, God.
And I want to read some good stuff. Well, that's why we're going backwards, right? That's why this is practically a nostalgia podcast. And we can go back and go, this is what we loved, sort of, maybe.
Isn't it funny how, I don't know, if it sounds like you're experiencing the same thing I am. So let me know if I'm misreading this, but the older I'm getting, the more nostalgia seems wonderful.
Comforting.
And comforting. Yeah. And maybe it's the time with the pandemic. Maybe it's my impending death.
Jesus.
I know it's dark, right? I have fewer years ahead of me, I believe, than I have had behind me at this point. And so, just when you get to this age, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I'm starting to think along those lines, and oh my God, it's depressing. So,
and our tolerance is lesser, right? So if we start reading something that we just don't like, it's like, I can't keep up. When you're a kid, I collected all 30 some issues of Blue Devil. They aren't all good issues, but I love I love the heck out of it, right? Now you give me 3 issues of something, and I'm like, no, that's it, I'm done.
Yeah, same.
So, hey, folks, how are you? Happy 2022, right? This is our first episode of 2022. Look how we're going so far.
Oh boy, that is yes. The previous conversation does not necessarily reflect the thoughts about this new year. Disclaimer.
Oh my. That's okay. We'll find good stuff to talk about. Anything else here at the preamble, or
no? I don't think so.
Okay,
we got some fun stuff at the end, folks. So stick around.
Yeah. Promise. There are some good things we're going to talk about in this, and since this is the beginning of a new year for us, this is the first time we're recording in 2022, first episode in 2022. We have some exciting things coming up too. I mean, once we get through the Universo project, I put my producer hat on and threw some ideas to Eric, and we have some fun things leading up to the next major storyline, which is the Superboy and Superman storyline. And we're going to be dropping some fun Tales episodes. One of them will be two of them will be a look at Bendis's Legion, which we've been hinting at and talking sort of about. Eric just gave some thoughts there. Oh boy, once we get into those, that'll be fun. And we have some other Tales stuff that are going to be a lot of fun. So we're going to have a good, we're hoping to have a good recording year for the Legion project. So thank you for sticking with us, and
yes,
onward and upward. So, okay. Shall we get into the issue? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Am I going to the synopsis here? Or are we going to? Yep. What are we doing? Okay.
Issue 34.
It's been a few months. I've forgotten how to do this show. All right. So issue 34, the Universo Project, Chapter 3, Forgotten Foe. This is by Paul Levitz, Greg LaRocque, Mike DiCarlo, Arne Starr, John Costanza, Carl Gafford, and Karen Berger. With a cover, as Peter said earlier, a wonderful cover by Steve Lytle. All righty. So what's going on here? Now on Naltor, the four escaped Legionnaires, Dream Girl, Brainiac 5, Saturn Girl, and Chameleon Boy consult with the High Seer and discover that Earth is now closed off and the Legion is no longer welcome. A foregone conclusion, they decide to go back to Earth to find answers. On a world near Hycraeus, Tellus escapes his prison, but soon will die on this desert world. Nearby, White Witch constructs a protection spell from the intense light and heat, but in her now sleepy state, she appears to succumb to a new threat. Elsewhere, Quizlet decides to play hero and rescue Wildfire from the robot that attacked Wildfire last issue, but discovers Wildfire now trapped inside it. Zamir arrives, but warps away, and the Legionnaires follow. Now undercover, the four Legionnaires prepare to leave Naltor, but Brainiac 5's curiosity gets him noticed, causing Dream Girl to create a distraction out of her own distraction. Meanwhile, Naltorian police have identified a Durlan, Chameleon Boy, noted as a quarantined race, and when confronted, Cam changes into a fly and, flies away. On Earth, Von Aaron and Element Lad enjoy a pizza dessert while watching Moops Ball. That word is just so hard for me to say, Peter. Then Chief Zendak calls, relaying that President Desai wants to talk to Jan in the morning about, quote, a bit of useful work. Mon-El, Ultra Boy, and Block are dealing with the attacking Dominator ships when Ambassador Relnick's ship returns to attack them. Then a space warp swallows them all gone. On the transport to Earth, Dream Girl and Saturn Girl have a heart-to-heart, and later Cam reveals his theory that the four of them were imprisoned because they are the four smartest Legionnaires. The customs police search for Cam, and the Legionnaires decide to run for it, borrowing an empty cruiser. Zamir arrives at the presidential palace to warn Universo, but the would-be tyrant smiles, saying, I can't wait until they get here. The science police chase and damage Legionnaire ship, forcing them to crash land. Chameleon Boy then deduces who is behind their capture. Lots of stuff happening.
Lots of stuff. That was a lengthy synopsis there. Lots of stuff that, we think should have happened. Or lots of stuff happened, but did it happen? Do we care? Do we care, Eric? That's the point. That's what I'm getting at. Do we care? Let's talk about the cover.
Well, the third act is really hard, generally speaking.
Nah.
All right. Cover.
Let's talk about the cover. Beautiful cover. Beautiful, threatening. We don't get many visceral covers, many covers that are I mean, issue 1 was kind of like that, very in your face. The Mon-El Nightmare cover,
ooh, yeah,
was really good.
mm-hmm.
Certainly the Brainiac 5 Supergirl cover, a lot of emotion on that. This one is like Universo triumphant, right? And very striking.
Which is perhaps counting as chickens before they hatch, so to speak. But yeah, I totally agree. The way this cover is drawn is what you said issue 1, but issue 2 has that robot attacking. So thematically, there's a through line there.
Oh, but, I meant issue 1 of the entire series.
Oh, yeah. Of course, yeah.
But I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But the way this is drawn, yeah, you don't normally see Legionnaires defeated like this. I mean, Wildfire, I mean, yeah, it's his containment suit, but that's still pretty kind of scary, seeing a Legionnaire torn up like that, literally in this case. And the other thing I thought was really interesting, comparing these 4 covers for the Universo project.
Mm-hmm.
The coloring and shading of this particular issue is different from everything else.
Right.
Which, makes me really wonder why did they do that? What was it a production thing? Was Steve Lytle just trying to do something a little different, and whoever the colorist was, if not Lytle. But yeah, I really like it because of the I guess the depth, the dimensions of the colors and the shadowing and whatnot. That really makes this cover for me.
Yeah. It's the backlighting on Universo.
Mm-hmm.
Creating all the shadow work in front of him, and it's all the detail work in Tellus. The body markings of his arms and the neck markings, and he's writhing in pain. And under Lytle, because it is his character, he really truly looks like an alien, an alien being. Fantastic, just a fantastic design.
You really
good cover.
You really see the difference between Lytle and LaRocque in terms of Tellus. Looking at how simpler LaRocque's version of Tellus is.
Yep. I definitely have that in my notes in one of the later pages. Yeah.
And speaking of the Lytle Tellus here, so he's got that blue head glow on him. Now, I remember vaguely that the original intention for Tellus that Lytle had was that, like, his I don't know, those bumps on his back, those would change color. Is that right?
Right, depending on mood.
Exactly. And so is that blue glow around his head, is that supposed to denote something along those lines? And I was going to look up, what the colors meant, that, because we talked about those specifically, I believe, when Tellus was first introduced into the series, but I don't recall the details.
Right. I'd have to look that up. I didn't pull that up. So, but yeah, the different reflections of those orbs, and he had a gem on his forehead, all meant something. And Lytle was very specific about that. So I'm sure maybe he gave some color notes to that. So
yeah, and even if that's not the intent, I like the idea of it based on that knowledge that we, like I said, that we talked about in that previous episode. One thing we haven't talked about this cover, Peter, is Dream Girl in the vertical banner there. And so we've noted the previous 2. I was curious, especially in comparison to the other 2 issues, and maybe even the 4th, if you want. What do you thought of how Dream Girl is being depicted in this?
I mean, that's her personality, right?
Yeah.
Like you look at it and you go, "Yep, that's Dream Girl." It's a very 80s style Dream Girl, and she's gorgeous, and her personality is exactly that, There's something about you could, if you want, even if it's not necessarily Lytle's intention, but the way she's looking is almost like, come on, I dare you. I dare you to do what you think you want to do to me, or what you want to say to me. You know, it's not as really there, but she owns who she is, and that expression is definitely there.
Yeah.
I feel like she owns who she is.
You know, at first I was disappointed in this, because the other two that we've seen so far, they're very serious, and they seem to be, so to speak, reacting to the situation that's depicted in the issue, you know. However, both of those characters, Saturn Girl and Chameleon Boy, are more serious characters. So it makes sense that they would have that kind of reaction or demeanor, perhaps. And so I thought, well, you know, this is what I was hoping out of this issue with in regards to Dream Girl in particular, was that we would see not the suggestive Dream Girl, not the sexualized Dream Girl that we typically see, but someone who is, you know, very smart, as we've that's been established, and we've talked about it many times, has leadership qualities, and, you know, that the spotlight would then shine on her, and she would show more of that kind of her, or that facet of her personality.
Right.
And what I see on the cover is not that. But I agree with you that this is the outward appearance that everyone, I think, knows of Dream Girl, and she's providing that. Now, is it? Now, I know I'm getting into the weeds here. Is this a ruse?
Sure.
On her part, right? And so this is, this is what you think of me, but there's a whole lot more, and we've already seen that already, especially with the previous issue and what Saturn Girl saw in Dream Girl's mind's eye, so to speak. Right. So
all these things which come up in this issue.
Yes, exactly. So then I read the issue. Are we done with the cover? Do you want to just get into the issue?
Continue. So, sure. You want to continue your thoughts?
Yeah, so that just to continue with that is, you know, I was disappointed at first with the lack of focus on Dream Girl, because we in the previous two issues, we talked about how, you know, there was a spotlight on Saturn Girl. It was a bit of a spotlight on Chameleon Boy. And I didn't feel like that this was much of a spotlight on Dream Girl. But then I started thinking about it a little differently. And I started thinking about, well, this is the third part of 4. And then I thought, well, like I said, you know, it's the third act. Third acts are hard. And so I did a little bit of digging, and you probably know much more about this than I do in terms of an act structure for storytelling and performance, right? But I found a reference here about the third act. This is from something on scriptmag.com that I found. Anyway, the third act, which will now consist of the hero having admitted his or her flaw, now fully allying with the other ally or allies to fully prepare for the final battle with the opponent. This will be shown in a climactic scene in which the hero shows that he or she has really overcome his or her flaw and is ready for the upcoming battle with the opponent. And I thought, well, doesn't quite fit, you know, perfectly, but it's really close. Mm-hmm. Just both in terms of the plot, and also from a character standpoint, especially with the scenes with the characters when they're in the spaceport and they're having their discussions, coming to that realization, you know, at the end, who they're battling against, the conversation that I'm sure we'll talk about in more detail between Saturn Girl and Dream Girl. So from that perspective, I started thinking, well, you know, this is not as disappointing as I thought at first.
Yeah, and that makes me think of some things, the way maybe the issue could have gone differently, but I don't want to start with those thoughts, you know. I felt like this issue was the worst Levitz issue of the run.
Of the run?
Of the run.
Wow.
I hesitate to call it my least favorite issue, because we've had some other one or two where we both were like, nope, not feeling that one.
Yeah.
Because there still is execution in the art that I find fine. And really, I can't hold LaRoque responsible for some of the shortcomings of the story, because he just has to draw what Levitz is, their collaboration is different than Lytle's collaboration with Levitz.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much input LaRoque could have had, as he gets a script and says, hey, we're kind of hitting the same beats here. Is that really what you want to do? Do you want to maybe kind of, mix it up a little bit? Yeah, the shortcomings with Levitz, because there's some things in here that just don't make sense time-wise. There are scenes that when you get to it, you want them to move somewhere else. I just found it very frustrating. And then the whole revelation at the end where like you said in the synopsis, where they figure out who is behind it all, I just think took them way too long. I know it's chapter 3, but there were enough clues. If they just would have read their Legion issues, they could have, their Legion archives, they could have said, just the prison planet alone should have, and the water hypnotizing them should have made that clear. It shouldn't have taken this long. So that to me feels like an editor flaw. That to me feels like a writer flaw. That and then when you talk about the Dream Girl thing, it's not as heavy as Saturn Girl. It's not as, and it seems like it's been declining, right? The Saturn Girl issue was amazing. What you learned about her, what you learned about the others through her. Chameleon Boy, same thing. What you learned about him, which we probably already knew, but what we got a few more thoughts of what he thinks of everybody. This one feels still a little more like everybody else's thoughts of Dream Girl and not Dream Girl's thoughts of everybody else, except for that one scene, which I'm sure. So, and I'll just quickly say this, because it's not gonna. This is me trying to rewrite the book, and that's not where I want the conversation to go. Obviously, if the first 2 chapters were about their individual strengths, Saturn Girl's strength being able to break her conditioning and helping the others to break conditioning, Chameleon Boy getting a sense of the world around him and saying, I got this, I'm going to take over, here's what we're going to do, and manages to help free everybody else and figure out the prison planet. I mean, that was all Chameleon Boy with his teammates. I felt like even though they were undercover in this issue, this should have been Dream Girl's arena. And even while they were hiding, she should have been the one to say, here's how you handle not getting noticed while being noticed. And she's not really all that hidden on this ship. She looks like Dream Girl. She got the star on her cheek, so I think there could have been a way that we would have seen that duality that you were talking about, her outward presence masking that she's a Legionnaire, or because she's so flamboyant and the team apparently was disbanded. Does everybody on the ship know that they were on prison? Probably not, unless Universo was telling the science police to look out for them. Because even the police, Brainiac 5 isn't hidden. He looks like a Kaluan, So she could have been, I'm Dream Girl. Yes, I was the Legion. The Legion. Who cares about the Legion? She could have used who she was to throw a feint. She's now, just like Chameleon Boy said, this is my territory. She could have been like, I got this, folks. Here's what we do.
Well, and especially when they're on Now Tour.
Yeah.
A world full of precogs, and we get a taste of that, what that means, with that guard having that premonition about Chameleon Boy, Durlin changing.
Right.
But, there's not much else done with that. It's just like, you're exactly right.
What if she would have went up to that guard and said, I had the same thing. Oh, but it's that guy over there. You know, like, and then totally, it writes itself. It's so simple. You know, if you're talking about, that was my frustration with this chapter. If they are supposed to be the smart, quote unquote, the smartest Legionnaires, and if we factor in what Paul Levitt says in a later letter column, that he also really sort of considered them the most dangerous Legion, or Universo considered them the most dangerous Legionnaires, that shows why she's dangerous. That shows why she's smart, because she can assess the situation of her people as they make their way to Earth and take advantage of the situation. And you know, so little rewriting of the book. I don't want to, you know, obviously that's not the point of it all, but I think that's where my frustration on this third chapter fell. Not to say there weren't some, you know, positive things in it. So it sounds like it worked more for you as a third chapter.
Yes, but again, it took a few readings and really trying to pull out probably smaller details and extrapolate from there, rather than, you know, looking at it as a whole and considering the major flaws. I was trying to ignore those, basically.
Yeah, because it is a story, unlike the first two chapters, where the main story really drove our conversation. I feel like the main story is not where it lies.
It's almost inconsequential in this issue,
because nothing happens with them. I mean, you know, the weird, they even make reference of it being weeks that they were imprisoned, and yet Block, Ultra Boy, and Monel are still dealing with the same situation.
That's right.
How does that happen? I mean, unless we're going to get an answer next issue that it's happened in their minds or something like that. And even the stuff with Hykreus, you know, that we know that they've been cast away, that Zamir cast them all to these different places. And okay, we get an answer. The reason they were cast away is to separate them. And then Zamir was going to zap them to Universo. He clearly is collecting Legionnaires, but it's not interesting.
Because it's all off panel. So for at least the Universo part, right?
Yeah. So smaller things I could talk about, bigger things. I mean, there was one or two pages. Oh, when they get the cruiser. Yeah. So from page like 20, 21, 22, and 23, when they get the cruiser, I have like no notes, because it's just, they're just getting the cruiser. There's nothing to it. I don't think I've ever gone that many pages without writing something in a Legion comic. And I got to the end of that sequence. I went, I have no ideas of what to talk about. That's terrible. It's terrible. So let's go back.
Okay.
What do you? I'll let you run this conversation, and I'll be the devil's advocate for this time around. I don't know. Where do you want to start with?
Well, okay, let's just start with page 1. I'm gonna focus on the art. I think on Dream Girl Hero. That's a beautiful image of Dream Girl, and a bit of a different look for her. We get in that first scene. She has a slightly different outfit on, and her hair, it almost looks like she cut her hair, which confused me, because then later she has her full head of hair. But it's just, you know, just a different style. But it's showing her in a short hairdo style. Which I like that. I like that differing aspect, and I know that in a future issue, the letter column about this issue, there's one particular letter writer who talks about the uniforms and changing things up, and you know, we get a little bit of that here. You see the other characters wearing different clothing, which is but not as striking as what Dream Girl is wearing. So, you know, at least artistically, they're really trying to focus on Dream Girl in this issue, which is what they should be doing, right?
Right.
Even though the story falls a bit short. I found there's a connection here in this first scene, and then also later in the issue with Saturn Girl, that I found interesting, because when it's revealed by the High Seer that the headquarters was being dismantled, her reaction interestingly, is one of anger.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how dare they, after all we've done for that planet? And, you know, she's kind of comically, you know, gripping her or you know, almost like she's shaking her fists in rage in that panel. And then later, when they arrive on Earth and they're about to, I think they're about to do that, be in that scene that you talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the one thing that I pulled out of that scene. So they're making a break for it, and she says, "I'll be damned if I have to skulk my way back onto Earth." You know, and again, that anger or that resentment or you know, whatever, very strong emotion coming from the Ice Maiden that is Saturn Girl in this issue. So I thought that was interesting, an interesting change from what we have seen before. She's not, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe she's acted or reacted angrily about the situation. It's a job that she's doing. Of course she's worried about her family and her friends, but it's all about getting through this to resolve it. But here she's starting to lose it. And I thought that was an interesting change for that character.
Yeah. Lose it, or just sort of just tired of being, tired of hiding. They're Legionnaires, right? And if you're going to get to the bottom of it, this felt almost like the leader Saturn Girl came out and she's like, all right, that's it. We're done. Let's go. We are there's no, even if everybody's against us, we are 4 Legionnaires. We're getting this ship. Who's going to stop us? You know? So, yeah.
Yeah, this is what this revelation's like one more thing standing in her way of getting home. And you know, home is not just the place. It's where her family is. It's all that stuff, right? So yeah, I totally see that. That's a good observation.
Yeah. Did you make sense of because I tried looking this up, but I have no idea where this comes from on page 3, where she says, Brainiac says, we must get back to Earth. And then Saturn Girl says, there is another way, Brainiac. Naltor is not without influence, and my debt to Nora Nal's mother is great.
Yeah, I meant to try to look that up too and figure out what that meant.
I mean, we've only really seen Nora and White Witch's mother once in a backup, at least according to the notes that I saw. And there was no mention of Saturn Girl in that story. It's an origin story for the White Witch and Dream Girl. So somewhere along the way, there's a story, I guess, that this is supposed to be referencing, or I'm thinking, was this going to be a later revelation coming out, that a connection between the two of them?
Yeah, that's kind of how I read it. But yeah, that's that. Like I said, I was gonna look that up to see if I could find anything, but did not. But I like what comes next, right? You know, Naltor is not without influence, and the High Seer's like, yeah, I could gather support. I could, you know, it sounds like this is the start of a rebellion against what's going on, or at least, you know, some sort of interference. But then they quickly undercut it, and like, no, don't worry, don't. Let's not do a 2-prong attack by us going to Earth and figuring out, and you also, even as a distraction, try to interfere in what's going on here. No, you don't worry about it, High Seer. We'll take care of it, the 4 of us who have been imprisoned already.
Right.
Not very logical. I would hope that at least Brainiac would go, wait a minute.
Well, especially since this kind of implies that it's, you know, the Mother Earth has been cut off. So it's not like Universal has control of the entire world, the universe. So unless we're supposed to take that, because the Legionnaires were disbanded and the headquarters is being demolished, obviously that would be news all the way throughout. That you know, look out for the Legionnaires. They're no longer official. They're no longer whatever. But if he's not affecting the entire universe, why would people care?
So as long as if news is coming out, well, I guess that's the question. Is news coming out? The High Seer So what does he say here? Earth is closed off, yet we still get glimpses of what passes there. So I don't know what that means. Is that an Altorian precog thing, or are they actually receiving images from Earth through broadcasts or other means? And if it's the latter, that would if this were a longer story, you could open that up to the reaction across the galaxy of the situation and who's for and who's against the Legion. You can have all these enemies coming after the Legionnaires who are not on Earth, and those offering support of the Legionnaires. But then it becomes a much larger story and not as focused on these four characters.
And that's where I think the trapping is for this chapter, is because he wants Levitz and company. They want to focus on the four characters. Yeah. They want them to. He wants to write a story that really kind of digs deep into them. So I think that's where you make some sacrifices in how the story could have gone here and there.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we talk about the scene between Saturn Girl and Dream Girl? Because I know it's sort of jumping, but just to kind of keep with Dream Girl since she is the focus, I thought it was probably the best page of the issue in terms of story.
Mm-hmm.
It's not terribly long, and it doesn't necessarily go too deep into their conversation. But if it's a Dream Girls issue, this is definitely something when I read it, I was like, I want more of this.
Yeah.
So they have a conversation. They're traveling. I actually really liked the travel log. They're going from Naltor to Ran to Mars to Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And, here we are passing Saturn. Saturn Girl and Dream Girl are talking about, they're missing people, and Dream Girl saying, at least you have people. That they're either looking for you, but basically implying that she doesn't have anybody. And then she opens up. We haven't exactly been friends over the years, but it's not because I don't respect you. We simply don't have much in common outside the Legion. And that feels like something a Dream Girl would say.
Yeah.
Right? And then Saturn Girl, being Saturn Girl, perhaps, but we have more in common than I thought, Nora. I couldn't help learning a lot about you when I went into your mind to break those blocks. There's no woman I'd rather have at my side in this fight. And Dream Girl says, thanks. That third panel there on the bottom, we should have gotten 2 more pages of that conversation. Really just sort of opening it up. But I thought it was nice to have between 2 characters who were both leaders, who both are very strong, who really, in this age of the 1980s and Dynasty and all that, should be enemies, Crystal and Alexis, right? Like, I feel like they could be, at each other. If Levitz wanted to, he could make enemies of these 2.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a great, I thought it was a good page.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in my notes, I wrote best scene in the issue.
Yes.
I think because of brevity, it's constructed a little weirdly. Dream Girl just jumps right into it. There's no natural point A to point B in this conversation to get to that bottom part of this page.
Yeah.
But once they're there, it really opens up not just the relationship between these 2, but also the idea of, she says, like you said, we don't have much in common outside the Legion. I'm sure, out of 20 plus Legionnaires, that kind of situation probably exists among several of them.
Mm-hmm.
And there's we always talk about the pairings of, like we have Ultra Boy and Phantom Girl and Mon-El and Shadowlass, natural pairings throughout the Legion. But then you have things like this where I was trying to remember when these 2 actually had a conversation on page, and I couldn't think of anything besides what's going on in this particular 4-part series, right? But this is very heartfelt. I really enjoyed this a lot. We get this moment of vulnerability in Dream Girl, and her need, her desire for some sort of connection. Like you said, at least you have Lightning Lad and your kids to worry about, right? She feels so alone right now. And there was an earlier scene, I think, when they were boarding the transport, where she was very introspective and thinking about Tom, and she was trying to, in a typical Dream Girl fashion, when they were waiting to, even earlier, waiting to get onto the transport, she strikes up this conversation with a handsome man and has to short circuit that because of Brainiac 5 shenanigans. But, this issue really highlighted to me, this is Dream Girl. This is what she's about. This is how she reacts in these situations. And it's not that this is new or anything, but we're getting a continuation of this characterization. Right. And I like that consistency for the character. This scene, however, goes even deeper, and that, obviously that's why we appreciate it more. So really good.
Yeah, she says earlier, I miss Tom. I wish we'd been able to work it out, but he couldn't handle me, and I suppose neither could I. And when you put that into play with what she's saying about Saturn Girl, at least you have Lightning Lad and your kids. It's almost like she's seeing how does she have for a woman who can see the future, or at least hints of the future, she may see herself never having a family. She may get hints of, when do I start getting visions of having kids, or if that's what she wants, when do I start having visions? When do these I'm not seeing anything.
Oh my God.
So that just makes her loneliness probably even more.
Is that what broke them up? She's not seeing that future with Tom.
Right. Maybe.
Ooh. Yeah.
Whatever future she wants. Maybe she doesn't want family. We don't know. But
right.
The point is when you're a precog, I guess that's why some of that's why she has to have the airs that she puts on, because she knows the answers to things before she knows the outcome. She knows, this boyfriend's going to be another just flash in the pan. There's no future. Mm-hmm. There's no future with this person. I wrote here, I do like the polar opposites that you could see with these two characters. You have the very cool, controlled Saturn Girl, because she has to be. And you have Dream Girl, who lives her personality in a way that she wants to be. Both were very strong Legion leaders. Sometimes Saturn Girl is accused of not being personable. Dream Girl is accused of being overly personable.
Mm-hmm.
You can argue the polar opposites of smart versus shallow. But yet there's also a shallowness in Saturn Girl if people don't think she has emotions, right? So, and yet Dream Girl may seem shallow, but she's actually very smart.
Right.
So great. Levitz is tapping into really good characterization here, as you mentioned, between the two. So, and Dream Girl, as we've been saying, really is going to come out of, I maybe I'm jinxing it, but we're halfway into this series. She is the MVP of this series. She is the one we seem to always be going back to. And Levitz must love her as a character.
Mm-hmm.
And not to say that it's not that the other characters don't have strong whatever, but I'm coming out of this series and I'm going, I really like Dream Girl. She's now becoming my MVP for this series,
Mm-hmm.
And we've had other characters too that are stepping up, but I love everything about her.
Since we are talking about Dream Girl and her relationships, I wanna cast my vote for something that I think is starting here. Just a little prediction here, Peter.
Mm-hmm.
I think Dream Girl and Brainiac 5 should be a couple here, right? Because in that scene, that next scene after the conversation between Dream Girl and Saturn Girl, they're getting on the transport. They're sitting down. She goes to a seat and says, "This looks like a comfortable section of the observation deck." And then we get a panel showing that deck. But then what we see is her sitting next to Brainiac 5. And then they have that conversation about, they're the smartest Legionnaires. Cam reveals that that theory, that observation. And Brainiac 5 says, "When you think about it, he's perfectly right. It's the obvious link between the four of us." And then we get this close-up of Dream Girl's face here, and she says, "Why, Brainy dear, all these years you've loved me for my mind?" And it's just, she's just playing. She's doing the typical Dream Girl thing. But what I want out of this is my I'm shipping this. My total fanfic outlook on this is that they should get together.
Could you imagine a more, opposites attract
yes
kind of situation,
I think it would totally work.
Oh, that would be hysterical. I mean, first of all, the conversation, it's another pairing of two characters that probably don't get a lot of pairing, although, I haven't read every Legion comic. I don't know. But she's asking questions. She's, I feel like we've had a scene with her and Saturn Girl. Now we're having the scene with Brainiac 5, and she is smart, so she's using him as sort of a board to bounce off of her ideas. Is basically, are we going through it the same way?
Well, even more than that, she asks, "Why only the four of us?" Brainiac 5 says, "There's a galaxy full of people who could have done it. Not enough data to start eliminating possibilities." And she challenges him on that. Mm-hmm. She challenges this, the quote unquote smartest Legionnaire. Shouldn't we though, if we're to keep it from happening again, which is, hindsight, too late because it already has, but right. they haven't realized that yet. But she reminds me of a good team leader. I think I talked about this last episode too, about her being a good manager.
Charge,
yeah. She is able to get people to think outside of their own comfort zone, so to speak, right? And so Brainiac 5 is like, he's all data driven. He's like a computer. He's like, give me enough data, I can deduce something, and he often does. But that can also be his downfall or his hindrance. He can't think outside of that box. He's not creative in that way. And what we're seeing here is that, well, she is. Even if she doesn't quite grasp the totality of everything that's going on, she sees a larger, or at least intuitively thinks of a larger perspective. And I really like that. Again, small details in this supposed spotlight issue, but there's a tiny nugget here in that scene that I really appreciated.
Yeah. And we could take, we're some of these things we're expanding way more than the issue actually.
Yeah, that's very true.
But that's the point of it, right? What you said about Brainy being data driven, hard facts, data. Dreamy is not. She is intuition. Those are two polar opposites right there. And one, you either have to share your ideas to come to a conclusion, which may be what Levitz is saying. It's another reason why they are both dangerous. And it's another reason why he pairs them up, to show them. He's working off of facts. She's working off of gut or her precog abilities, which Brainiac 5 would probably be like, well, that's probably 1 in a million, But then if you go back to the opening 3 pages, who's the one that says, when they look back on Earth and she sees the dismantling of Legion and Siobhan Aaron is leading it, and Dream Girl says, she's Element Lad's little science police pal. Do you suppose he went along with this lunacy? Everybody else goes, Dream Girl, how dare you? No, come on. And she's like, it's just a thought, but she's right.
Yeah.
Her
in a
intuition
sense,
is right. Yeah. Even if they don't understand why, they're just assuming all the Legionnaires, well, you don't know what's going on with them. So that right there also is another example of of her strengths and her smartness, even if she's not aware of it. And then the third one, I keep saying that we don't really have a scene with Chameleon Boy, but if you think about it, they both are about disguises. You know, Dream Girl, her disguise is her beauty. Think about last issue where she's like, I got to go wash my hair. She's got to be presentable. Think of the cover. She's got to throw this presentation out there. She has to wear this presentation. Chameleon Boy has to wear an image of himself or he's going to get arrested, you know? So in a way, again, this small idea that I'm pushing way too big, but they both have to be in disguise in one way or another to survive this journey. So
yeah.
So, you know, I'm talking with you, as I'm talking, I'm realizing, great. These are great. These are great points that I didn't think initially. So thank you, Levitz. Thank you, Eric. You know, makes me like her chapter a little bit more because we can see those things. And even if they don't, we've said this a lot, even if it doesn't play out on the page, we can carry these things issue to issue because Levitz clearly is trying to layer this there, but he can't do it in enough pages because he's got to worry about, you know, 20 some other characters.
Correct. Yeah.
But we can certainly see the an arc, even if we're reading in between the panels and whatever. But I like that. I like all that stuff. Was there anything else about the four of them in your notes?
Other than the end when they, you know, they realize it's Universo.
Okay, yeah, we should talk about that.
Yeah. Which is it's a bit anticlimactic for a couple of reasons. One, we already know as readers that it's Universo. So why? And I wish I could remember things that I've said in the past. I think I've said this before. You know, why did Levitz construct this quote unquote mystery this way for these characters? Because we know, right? Where's the fun in that? Maybe we should have been in the dark a little bit longer. Anyway, regardless. So, you know, they come to that. Oh, I'm sorry. And then the second thing was, you know, you've been talking about, you know, they should have figured this out by now. You know, the four smartest Legionnaires, you know, they should have done this, right?
Yeah.
You know, but I will offer this as a potential retcon, Peter. Think of the title of this issue: Forgotten Foe. And we probably should next go talk about that scene with Universo. But you know, he doesn't seem at all concerned that they're on their way, right? What if whatever whammy jammy he's put on them, that also made them forget about that entire previous incident, right? And so them now coming to that conclusion makes a little more sense. You know, we could forgive them for their lack of deductive abilities or intuitive abilities, right?
Right.
So.
That totally makes sense. And that last page, until Saturn Girl says, you know, they'll be after us, the whole damn science police, the government, and the rest of Earth. We've been turned into outlaws. It's almost in tone the same exact thing they say at the end of Adventure Comics 359, where they're like, okay, well then we're going to become renegades on this Earth. So that's why Chameleon Boy's like finally piecing. They all are piecing. It's like the pieces falling into their brain. Oh, we have been in this. Oh. So yeah, I'll totally accept that as a no prize, and makes me feel so much better about the situation. Yeah, that's great. And plus, they haven't heard from Universo in a while, right? Like probably not in this series. He's been in the background with the whole election thing and the president. And in the newsstand version, from 300 on, did we see Universo? I think the last time we saw him was that block story where he learns about Universo's past.
Oh yeah. Yes.
Right. And some random some random appearance. I don't think we've seen a lot of him. So
yeah.
Maybe that's why he's sort of out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah. Now I want to go back and figure out how many years publishing time was there the last Universo story.
I do have it in my, because I was trying to read all those issues, all those Universo issues. Let's see. October 81, Brave and the Bold 179. He was in that. He was in Superman Family 207, Universo versus Supergirl. That was 1980. But then after that, you have the block story. You have Legion 300, where he probably shows up just because everybody showed up there.
Mm-hmm.
I have here Tales 320, but I don't remember what that one was. Oh, that was that. That's the one where he's talking to the Monitor, and he hires the Magpie to get something from.
Right.
But then he's like, I don't need it. So yeah, so he hasn't appeared in a number of years.
Yeah. Okay.
So I guess you could make all that make sense then. So, all right, good. Even if we don't get the answer next issue, that does make me feel. You're right. I should have paid. You got to pay attention to the. The first one was Forgotten Heroes, right? Yeah, they're forgotten because they're taken off the map. The next one was Forgotten Planet because nobody, I guess, knew who that where that prison planet was, and now we got oh right, yeah, okay, good, thanks. See, this is good. This is why we do these deep dives. I do, before we get off of the four of them, did you make anything of when Chameleon Boy does say that we are the four smartest? Her reaction, Dream Girl's reaction. Common characteristic. Someone must have one of the four smartest Legionnaires out of the way. And she goes, huh?
Yeah.
Does she not see herself that way? I think that's kind of a mixed message, because we have seen her kind of knowing what she's capable of doing. But
yeah, I didn't know how to take that either. It didn't make sense to me. It's not like she couldn't grasp the idea.
Right.
And so, yeah, that led me to what you just said was, does she not consider herself smart? I can't believe that. She's despite her
leader.
Yeah. Well, despite her occasional bouts of not indecision,
flippancy, and just sort of.
Yeah. But she has a very strong personality, and I just don't buy that reaction. I don't buy that idea that she is not getting it or thinks she's worthy of that title of being a smart Legionnaire.
Yeah,
because she's certainly not going to. She's not modest. This is not a modest feint. So.
And then I did write, and we got examples of it in the letter column later, of, boy, what did people think of Paul Levitt's calling these the four smartest Legionnaires?
Oh, yeah. That was fun.
And we did get some letters, later, where somebody was like, oh, boy, you're going to open a can of worms. But they clearly said, I get it. I can see why. One of their arguments is, what about Mon-El, with biochemistry and all that.
Right.
I said, but really, we don't use that. They don't use that character for his smart. They use him to punch walls, Whereas in Dream Girl's very first appearance, she changes Lightning Lass's powers. I mean, she made things happen to somebody using her smarts, So, Brainiac 5, certainly his smarts. Chameleon Boy, certainly his smarts, and Saturn Girl just being Saturn Girl. I mean, that just it sort of all makes sense. So yeah, those were interesting. Then, or like they the same person, I think, said, well, what about Element Lab? What about White Witch? They have to learn all this. I was like, nah.
It's like when I was in high school, I always had the I guess the reputation of being, smart. And it wasn't that I grasped concepts better or in a faster way or anything like that.
Right.
It's that I studied.
Right.
I
homework.
I did my homework. Exactly. Right. So I never thought of myself in the same way that other people thought of me in regards to academics. Right. Because it's like,
I graduated 30 out of 500 students, like within the top 30 of 500 students, Did I fail my physics course one semester? Yes, because whatever. or get close to failing or whatever. Like, no, yeah, that don't mean nothing.
By the way, physics, that was
physics.
one of my only C's in high school.
Physics was hard. I loved it. But it was hard. Okay, you said you wanted to talk about Universo.
All right. So I mentioned that Universo scene earlier, and I just want to touch on a few things here. Very curious, because so far what we've seen here is Universo appears to be winning. And of course, we know he can't in the end, right? But as far as the story so far, that scene with Universo talking to Zamir, Zamir says, failing your scheme to hold most dangerous Legionnaires and those who foiled you in past seems to be Universo. Perhaps, perhaps not, Universo replies. If I thought those heroes could not be of use to me, I would have killed them, which answers one of our questions from before. Why not just kill these Legionnaires? I still think they may serve my purposes. I found it curious. I know I'm really nitpicking here, focusing on particular words, but he thinks they may serve. So he hasn't. Universo, based on this conversation, Universo is not the ironclad planner that the story might have suggested at first. He's not that. So I just found it very curious. This guy who has planned this takeover of Earth, at least the dismantling of the Legion, as far as we understand it, succeeding to a point that he's never. Well, that's not true. He has succeeded to this point so far. So what happens next, I guess, will play into this, right? But yet here he is going, I think it might work. It doesn't quite ring true, I guess, is my struggle with this. But he's happy, he's smiling, and again he says, after today I'm ready. Didn't he say that about the fact that he killed his son? Because he killed his son, he was now able to do this thing. What is he waiting? What is he preparing for to be ready? Why? He succeeded so far. What's next? I get maybe that is that supposed to be a tease for next issue? The revelation of whatever his next part of his plan is.
Right. I sort of thought, because he teased that like he's like last issue he's saying I have a new idea. I thought the new idea was, let me bring all the Legionnaires that I shunted away back to me again, because they all get teleported back. Wildfire, Quizlet, Mon-El, Ultra Boy. He's bringing them back to Earth because he knows that but he didn't know the four were, well, maybe he knew they were escaping last issue too. And that's why he put this secondary plan into place, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. See, you start to think about his plan, whatever that is, and
falls apart.
Why. Yeah. It just doesn't make a lot of sense.
So here's what project means. A project is any undertaking carried out individually or collaboratively and possibly involving research or design that is carefully planned by a project team, but sometimes by a project manager or by a project planner to achieve a particular aim. Sounds like there's a lot of what if in all of that. So, and then there's also here an alternative view sees a project managerially as a sequence of events, a set of interrelated tasks to be executed over a fixed period and within certain cost and other limitations.
Yep.
Sounds like what this is, say no way.
But it's all of that, right? It's the macro and the micro.
Yeah.
And I think Universo has this idea of the macro take over the world. To do that, I must do X, Y, and Z. But then the micro of the X, Y, and Z is where things are going to really fall apart here.
Yeah. And then when you look at the verb, maybe it's Universo project. to estimate or forecast something on the basis of present trends or data. Maybe it's not Universal Project, it's Universal Project. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna try to remember to say it that way next time we talk.
Yeah, so it's, the naming of it is so interesting because it's clearly a riff on Judas Contract. I mean, maybe not so overtly, but when you have the Judas Contract and then a year later or whatever, you have the Universo project, Judas, Universo. I mean, it just feels.
Yeah.
Certainly, when I was a kid, I was like, "Oh, they're great." They're starting to do named storylines now. We talked about this before, but so close back to back. But the Judas Contract, I mean, that means something. There's whether you want to call Tara a traitor, even though she's not, she was a spy. And the contract was something that Deathstroke was working on from his very first appearance in issue 2. He inherited his son's contract, the Ravager, to kill the Titans, right? What you said about Universo and not having this, having a plan, but it's not foolproof or 100%. That's his MO, man.
Well, yeah, that's true. You're right.
From the very first appearance, he's not good at it.
He's not a closer for sure. He's the idea guy, but he cannot execute.
Which is why having Zamir is interesting. There we go. Let's rewrite it a little bit more. You wish he would have used a few more other people to even throw off the scent.
And how did he get Zamir in the first place? Is it strictly a transactional thing? I'll pay you this, or you get this planet, or what draws Zamir to be part of Universo's plan? And yeah, like you said, if he's got this one, why not? There's a plethora of Legion foes who could be part of this plan. Maybe he just doesn't want to share.
Right. And to be fair, Zamir does what Zamir was supposed to do. I mean, he's probably the most effective of any of these characters. I mean, he manages to split up Quislet, Wildfire, Tellus, and White Witch into situations where they could potentially die or at least be weakened. He gets the better of Wildfire. White Witch does nothing. She protects herself and then falls asleep. It's like me after I eat too much, and then I sit and watch TV and I just pass out, So, yeah, I mean, he's effective. Zamir is strangely, oddly effective, and not only in this story, in some of the earlier stories we read too.
Yeah, dangerous. I mean, I almost consider him or it a little more dangerous than Universo himself. So.
Yeah, careful of the sea cucumbers. I do love if we keep on like some of the Universo and Zamir stuff, like when Quislet pops in and so I had this revelation. I'm sure you did too, or not so much a revelation, but so when we get to the individual chapters of Tellus breaking out of his prison, White Witch determining, figuring out what she's going to do, they were kind of like, whatever. But then Quislet pops in and he tries to help Wildfire. I love that they basically both take over the mechanism that is destroying Wildfire's containment suit. And you see their little symbols in his visor. You see Quislet's and Wildfire. And I went, I can't remember we talked about this before in that backup tale with the two of them, but they are basically the same kind of being. An energy being that needs to be housed within a containment, whatever that means.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I thought that was very and Quislet for Quislet to say, "Follow me, Wildfire. I will show you how to take energies through Zamir's space warp." He's the one teaching Wildfire, teaching the teacher.
Yeah, and don't we? I think later on in the series, doesn't Quislet tutor Wildfire in changing his appearance?
Oh, is that? Okay, I don't remember that. I do remember the cover, and I remember what's gonna. I remember Wildfire's new appearance. But yeah, they have another story coming down the road. So yeah, great, good, cool, fun little moment there.
Well, since we're here, I found it interesting. I was curious what you thought of this. Quizlet arrives near where Wildfire is. Right, Quizlet finally gets chance to be big hero. Arrange great rescue. Yay! Is that this is probably the most personality we've gotten from Quizlet. That isn't just him being kind of jokesy in previous issues. And I wasn't quite sure how to interpret that. Is he just so exuberant that he's, everything that every emotion or thought that comes to its brain, so to speak, he just emotes it and voices it, or is this this is his sort of inner monologue, expressing his desire to either prove himself as a Legionnaire, or is Quizlet more of a glory hound? He's going to jump in and save the day. It's just that little speech bubble contains so much possible weight for this character, and I'm curious to see which path this ends up going down, because I'm really curious about what kind of a creature Quizlet is.
Yeah, he's very much like Puck. Like if you know Shakespeare and you know the character of Puck in The Tempest, and he's very, that character is very earthy, but very, you could say Tinkerbell, you could say Jiminy Cricket in some ways. Any creature that feels like they are sprightly, if they feel whimsical, otherworldly. Gollum is kind of like a Puck aspect in many ways, but yet think of Yoda. I gotta go to Star Wars, unfortunately. Think of Yoda, right? The first time you see Yoda, he is this character, right? Look, what do you have? Fancy, your ship, start throwing stuff. And then the turn comes and you're like, not that I expect that turn to happen with Quizlet, but I think that's what Levitz is probably showing us, that he is that kind of character. We don't have those characters in this. You get them with the creatures, right? You get it with like Prody was maybe the closest thing to something like this, or that little creature that eats technology that you see every now and then. Computo, you could say to some degree, is kind of like has this voice where Levitz can just be silly with him,
yeah.
So, yeah, I like that. I like that. He's an odd creature. And Levitz is probably like, I got a talking fish. I have skeets before there were skeets. And I have to figure out how to write them. Well, this is how I guess I would write them.
Yeah. And make them distinct. And
he's
an alien.
Yeah. He was a drone before drones were drones, A sentient drone. Think of, I just saw on Twitter, it's a tangent, somebody posted a video of people trying to attack his drone. And there's like an old man with like a 2x4 trying to take a swing at a drone, and somebody trying to throw a hammer up into the air. Like, that's what Quizlet is. He's like that annoying drone that you see. Like, what the heck?
Well, he certainly has that potential.
Yeah.
But I'd like to believe that there's a little more depth to Quizlet that we haven't seen yet. Should we talk about the Element Lad scene?
What happened?
Yeah, I was gonna say there's not much there, but what's interesting, contrast this scene with Siobhan and Jan hanging out, watching crappy holovids and then Moops Ball, and having dessert pizza or an exotic agent dessert called pizza.
Come on.
I love it when writers do those kind of things.
If pizza doesn't exist 1,000 years from now, I don't want to live. Come on. Although to be fair, I did punch into Google. I said famous food or familiar or topical or popular foods of the year 1022. I went 1,000 years backwards, and I couldn't find anything. Nothing really came up. Like, so maybe pizza will fade away by.
Well, I bet you could even go 100 years ago and find something that would seem exotic to us now.
Yeah, I guess. Can you imagine? Scorsese's mom's pizza recipe disappears in the Great Wars, and she, someone has to discover pizza again.
They can make a movie out of it.
There you go.
I'm sure. But
it's a David Letterman reference, in case people were wondering why I said
that. I did find, though, this scene curious for a couple things. Like I said, contrast that with what Dreamgirl says at the beginning, and she's thoroughly chastised for. And then we get the scene, with him saying, I enjoy watching these things. It's nice not to worry. And it's almost like Siobhan is pressing him on this. Guess so, but are you going to do anything? Yeah, Jan, are you going to do anything about this, about Universo's project? You must be bored not having the Legion to run around with. No, again, stress on this. I'm very happy. Maybe I could use my powers to make you something pretty. And then what I really like about this is that the something pretty that he makes her looks a lot like the sculpture that appeared for many, many years in front of the old Legion clubhouse.
Oh, yeah.
Before the one that we have now. So I thought,
catch.
Is he starting to break out of Universo's control, like Saturn Girl did? And I, didn't she say something that, or maybe it was Brainiac 5, they would have broken out from under his sway. And maybe now Jan is working his way through that.
Yeah, that's a great catch. And now you having said that makes me think, oh, I didn't catch this before, that Siobhan really, it could be through Siobhan and Chief Zendik that Universal is keeping a watch on Element Lad, making sure there's no, because I was like, why are we only seeing Element Lad of all the Legionnaires? I mean, I know we have Mon-El and Block and all them, but the only ones we really see is Element Lad. But, he is the leader at this point, so I guess that makes sense that we want to tap into that story, but into that story information. So maybe there's going to be a turnaround in the next issue or so. So yeah, that's great. That's a great catch, and I totally missed all of that. So,
and then I think I only have one more comment about the story itself, and that's the scene with Ultra Boy and the rest, which you're not caring for based on just like how it fits in with the whole timeline, right?
Right. But we did get an interesting part in it.
What was the interesting part to you?
Are you going to talk about what Mon-El says about Ultra Boy's powers?
Yeah, go ahead with that. That was one of the things I pulled out of this, but there's another thing I want to throw your way.
Just because we've had that conversation before about, Ultra Boy almost is probably better at honing his individual skills because he has to, than say like a Superboy and Mon-El who just take it for granted that they are all there. I mean, we've had, even in like the Crisis, Supergirl was like, I'm going to use it's a silly power, but I'm going to use my breath to blow away all these things, right? And there's been one or two other places where like a super character will say something like, I sometimes forget that I can do this, because they have to, whereas Ultra Boy's got to be super focused. And when Mon-El says, do you regret it? He's like, I'm just a farm boy who got lucky. And I was like, yeah, just like Clark Kent, technically. Clark Kent was just a farm boy who got lucky, in some ways, if you think about it.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that connection. The whole farm boy thing. That's awesome. Which, God, life is so good. because Ultra Boy made his first appearance in a Superboy comic, and traveling back in time to meet, talk and interact with Superboy, and yeah, that's really cool. The thing about that comment, I'm just a farm boy who got lucky and became one of the strongest Legionnaires. I don't know, that is almost like a new dimension to Joe's personality. I can't think of any other story where he's, I guess, expressed his view of himself in that way.
Yeah.
I just thought that was interesting. Just another layer that, just real quick, Levitz is throwing on top of this character that's been around forever.
And not every character needs to have that Marvel flaw, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like the way Stan Lee said, all of those early Marvel Age characters were born out of a flaw. Whether it was arrogance on Doctor Strange's part, and that's why he loses his surgeon hands, Tony Stark, Peter Parker. I mean, they all had to learn. He's just, I'm Ultra Boy. I got a cute girlfriend. I'm one of the strongest Legionnaires. Done and done.
And no, he doesn't have a complex about not being like Mon-El. He doesn't. He's not in competition with Mon-El. He's best friends with Mon-El. I mean, yeah, he's a pretty, even guy, even keel guy.
Yeah, I think, and it's carried even into the 5 years later. I feel he has the same kind of personality.
I was just going to say that. Yeah.
Yeah, even more so. It's probably looser even in that one where he's like, yeah, okay. So it's good. It's good to have some Legionnaires that are like, you can rely on. We don't have to dig into their insecurities, which is to be expected for this kind of large team. What's your point then?
The only other thing I was going to point out to this is, point out in this is that when I read this scene, I was confused. I thought this was a continuation of last issue's scene. But then I kind of, there's more to it in this scene, but this is almost like that same scene played out from a slightly different perspective. And we get a little bit more dialogue between the characters that we didn't get last issue because Mon-El says Relnick's ship has returned and it's firing at Block. And that's what we saw last issue. But what we didn't see is all this other stuff in the previous page and a half or so, right? So we're seeing that scene play out again, but with like I said, with added material. And so that is, while that's interesting from a storytelling standpoint, why recreate a scene that we just had? I think it contributes to this whole reaction we've had generally about this issue, which is,
and confusing. You're right. That is confusing.
And initially confusing.
Yeah, I did not, because I went back and looked at it and I said, wait, they already were fired on. Why are they fired on again? But that totally makes sense. It's a different point of view.
And so unusual. This is not something Levitz normally does.
No.
Or was this the Rogue, and Levitz had to come in and fill in the gap and not jump the timeline. It's, who knows, but it's interesting to ponder why they did this scene.
They better be stuck in a time causality Star Trek loop.
See that? Yep. That would address it, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Otherwise, I don't buy why they've been gone for weeks. Interesting. Let me see if I have any leftover notes here. Chameleon Boy being accused of being a member of a quarantined race. There's that Durlin racism again.
Yeah. Now, is that the idea of them being a quarantine race? Is that something that we've encountered before? I know, Durlins are thought of as suspicious or thought of suspiciously. But has that been like a political standpoint from the United Planets?
Or is it part of Universo's thing
or Naltor in particular?
Maybe.
I tend to think it's more probably Universo. But it was an odd reference. But
they're not well liked in the 30th century.
That's true.
There's just too many things that they've done that they get accused of doing, and so the only other thing I have is the cruiser that they steal is exactly like the way LaRoque draws a Legion cruiser.
I thought the same thing.
Yeah, when you go to issue 25, it's the same exact design where the front part looks like a key. It has that, semicircle back of the ship. I forget what the back of a ship is called. Port, bow, whatever. Stern, whatever.
Stern.
Okay. It's a Legion cruiser. I was like, wait a minute. That's the same exact, okay, I get it. Maybe somebody designs the Legion cruisers and it's become a model, but that's, come on, LaRoque, Karen, somebody. And you'd be like, wait. Or make it a Legion cruiser. Or they should have just made it a Legion, and they should be like, oh, look, there's a Millennium Falcon. Grab that piece of garbage, and then they fly away.
Yep. That was going to be my next no prize attempt, was that it actually is a Legion cruiser that they sold it off or gave it away after they dismantled the Legion headquarters, and they just happened to come across one and take it.
Maybe LaRoque is right. Maybe in some of the planning, maybe Levitz threw an offhanded comment. It's like, oh, they're going to steal it. So he's like, all right, I'll draw the cruiser. And then Levitz forgot, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Just not good. So. All right, well, good. I'm glad we hashed out some of those things. It makes me feel a little better about things. I don't want to walk out, and be like, ugh. Because then, everybody's going to think I hate Legionnaires. So next chapter, Forgotten Friends. We'll have to pay attention to what that means.
Before we move on to other things, Peter, there's a couple art things I just want to make note of in this issue. I feel like LaRoque and Gafford are maybe having a little more fun, maybe having done so many issues now together, they're starting to play off of each other, because when I was looking through the scenes where there's lots of like the space sport scenes and whatnot, there's lots of different kinds of aliens and the looks of the characters. We got our main team in different uniforms or outfits or whatever. But they're making an attempt to make the aliens especially look distinctive and varied, and I really like that. It's not just throw what's the guy from the Garfield comic strip that we saw in a previous issue?
Right.
Throw him in the background. Yeah, John. Or more established, more well-known, alien or alien-looking type characters from comics or movies or whatever. Yeah. So I appreciate that. I just want to say that. And then also, we didn't talk a whole lot about that scene with Tellus and White Witch, but that picture on page 5 of White Witch, I usually LaRoque reserves his, I'll say, quote unquote, good work for Dawnstar, as we've seen in previous issues. But this is a well drawn image of White Witch, even if it's, just over the top kind of, oh my God, I'm dying type post. but it's well done here. In fact, that middle panel there with her just thinking, and she's sweating and she's distressed, it actually kind of reminds me of Giffen a little bit. So anyway, I appreciate the art, some of the art in this.
Good. Yeah, it has its moments. The backdrop of Saturn behind Saturn Girl. And
yep. Mm-hmm.
That's great. One thing about the letter column, I think it's in the issue 39, about 34. One of the writers, first of all, I never agree with anything that Rex Joyner says when he writes a letter. He loved this issue. He totally loved this issue. I don't have the letter column at hand.
Wait, go ahead.
He says stuff in it that I'm like, oh, and we've talked about him before, so I hope he's not dead, because then we're talking ill of the dead. But Rex Joyner, clearly he and I don't see eye to eye. But there's a previous letter previous letter to that one where they're talking about the smartness and whatever. And Paul Levitz says he implies something about a clue to the characteristic he believes that they share, and what he intended to do with them. I guess he's talking about Universo, or maybe even about himself. And I was like, okay, and that's kind of what we got there with what Universo said. So if if it's not only that they're smart or dangerous, does he think they're the ones who would kill? Does he think they're the ones who... I don't understand what... Maybe I need to look up that thing in the... Okay, so it's the letter column in 39, the first letter by David Backus. He's the one who talks about, oh boy, you just call these the four smartest. Boy, people are going to have words about that. And Levitz responds, and some of it is dangerous because it's talking about the whole Universo project, and we're not done with it, because he talks about a regret that he has about certain parts of it. This is Levitz. If you reread the series, you will notice that at no time does Universo describe the four Legionnaires as being kidnapped because they were the most intelligent, only among the most dangerous. And really, it was Amir who said it, right?
Right, exactly.
Nor does he say they were a particular threat, only that they might prove useful to him. And at another point, that he expected to break their will by imprisoning them among non-entities. Take that together with Universo's history, and you might get a clue to the characteristic he believed they shared and what he intended to do with them. So what is it? If it's not smart and it's not dangerous, did he think they would be the ones to control the Legion? But why send... so I was very... When Levitz wrote that, I was like, come on, Levitz, you're done with the story. Just tell us. Don't be coy about it. I don't know what you're trying to imply. Especially when he says, take that together with Universo's history.
Yeah, which is usually that his son betrays him and helps defeat him. Because otherwise, in that previous story, he did succeed. He took over the world. He made the Legionnaires outlaws. I think, yeah, I think we should come back to this after the next issue, because
that's smart. That's smart.
Because I think that whole thing about, because unless I'm misremembering, he expected to break their will by imprisoning them among non-entities, which is in quotes. I don't remember reading that in these 3 issues so far. Does that sound familiar to you?
I guess they mean the other prisoners on the planet.
Right, but I mean, in terms of Universo saying something along those lines.
Oh, yeah.
Or is this, or maybe I'm misreading Levitz here.
Maybe he's just putting that because he's the writer. Yeah.
To go back to Rex's letter, though, Peter.
Oh boy,
because this kind of fits. There was something that I appreciated about Rex's letter. Let's see here. So this could turn out to be one of the best tales yet. If not, what does he say? It could be. Okay, I won't read the whole letter, but it's merely. This story could merely be another in a long line of comic stories in which the villain is defeated by his own stupidity, given him by a writer who took the easy way out. So he's calling Levitz out. I love that.
He's a troll. I don't like Rex Jordan. Too much time out there in Wisconsin on his hands.
Isn't it so it's a letter columns with people's addresses in them is such a
right.
a 20th century thing, right?
Yeah.
There's no way they would do that now.
Right. And a lot of those letter columns became pen pals because of it.
Yeah.
I mean, how can you not see T.M. Maple's address there issue after issue of all these DC comics and not want to write him, or or some of the other ones that have existed, that was the letter columns, or that they don't print letter columns in reprints annoys me. You could wipe out the address, because I think they are a fundamental part of the reading experience.
Yeah.
And that they don't include them is like, come on. I understand why, but
yeah.
Yeah.
Some other things out of the letter column. Normally, I only get a few things, but there's a bunch of stuff out of here I found interesting in relation to the issue. Letter writer Scott tells the Levitz and company that They've made him like Dream Girl, which, my reaction to that was welcome to the club. He also says, that, however, that she didn't do anything spectacular in number 34, but really like the scene between Dream Girl and Santa Girl, like us, with a call for more of that. And I said, yep, yeah, exactly. We're on the same page. Tia Maple, as you mentioned, went on a philosophical bent regarding Neltorian precognition and the moral and ethical implications thereof. I thought that was sort of interesting. Didn't really go anywhere with it, but and then finally, I think, letter writer Henry agrees with me, Peter, regarding a Brainiac 5 and Dream Girl relationship. So there you go.
Oh, lovely. Good stuff. So this is normally the section where we would dip into DC at the time of when this particular issue hit. We're talking February of 1987. And there was nothing, not a thing. No who's who, no appearance that I could find. Unless, I'm sure I might have missed things along the way, but there's nothing major. There's no history of the DC universe. There's the Legion Index, but I'm assuming it just keeps detailing stories. There's not much to it.
Yeah, I looked through it. There was nothing interesting, although some of the issues that it goes over have some similarities to this story. The prison, the space Stalag story is listed in here, and so there's a 2 or 3 other stories where I was looking at that going, oh yeah, this has some either thematic or plot elements that are similar to the Universo project, but other than that, nothing remarkable.
How far up does the index go? Does it cover the Baxter series, or no? It doesn't get there, right? No,
yeah.
Because I thought maybe it could be cool to see if they have any interesting factoids about, but it doesn't go that far.
Yeah, unfortunately,
that's fine.
If we were to go back and start with Adventure Comics 247, and
yeah, plenty of podcasts that have already done that.
Yeah.
I like the way we do it. Booster Gold 16. We've been taking a look at Booster Gold, but there really wasn't anything in that. So there really is nothing. So what we decided to do is make mention and just give some easy thoughts, I'm sure, about the history of the DC Universe portfolio that was that came out sometime 1987-ish, I'll say. Something, and this was hot off the heels of the DC Universe history of the DC Universe miniseries. I can't remember if I'd have to see if I think the George Perez Batman portfolio came out after this. So I think so. These were 10 plates or 10 black and white original art sized plates, they call them, put together in a portfolio case, oversized portfolio case with a cover by Bill Sienkiewicz, featuring Superman and a whole bunch of other DC characters. Really awesome. Just beautiful, beautiful design. I do not own this, surprisingly. And a lot of it was a way to, and they only made 8,000, it says here, a limited edition of 8,000. It was a way to showcase their new snapshots of their universe, especially post-crisis. They came up with nearly 24 plates, and then they edited it down to a mere 10 to kind of channel through this new DC universe. So they had the Demon, Dr. Fate, Jonah Hex. They went to World War II. The Arise of the Heroes with Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. Swamp Thing, because that was a popular thing. One plate by John Byrne called Freaks, which was meant to be a new super team within the DC universe, which never manifested. That some of the concepts of the Freaks would wind up in John Byrne's Next Men. And then the last one, to showcase the future of the DC universe, we got Legion of Superheroes, as drawn by Steve Lytle. So I thought it would be fun to take a look at that plate and marvel and drool over how beautiful it looks.
Well, it's curious. Well, I guess not. This part's not curious, but the two most prominent characters on this are Lightning Lass and I'm blanking on his name, Peter.
Timberwolf,
thank you. Lightning Lass makes a lot of sense to me because she was the central character for the very first arc of this new era of the Legion, this volume 3. Timberwolf, not so much. I mean, he's constantly there, of course. They were an item, but they aren't in this storyline. So I have to assume that it's a favorite character of Lytle's. And then just the rest of the Legionnaires that are shown. There's not all of them are here, I don't believe.
No, it's only about 15 or 16.
Yeah. So and then the backdrop is just, looks like a couple suns in the background and, space. So I don't know. What did you think of this overall, this image? Is this a good image to promote the Legion of Superheroes in this limited edition collection?
I think because they're also, not only are they trying to pinpoint different eras of the DC universe, going back to, Camelot and the Demon, through World War II, through to the future. It's a journey through DC, but it's also about celebrating the artists as well. So if you're going to put Steve Lytle, I think it makes sense that, because they even make reference that he's not on the book. He left the book to go do in the table of contents. It says he left the book to go do the Doom Patrol. So he's not even the current, person. Maybe he was when he was drawing it, but it makes sense, because Quizlet is kind of front and center. Sensor Girl is there. He has Tellus in the background. It's not your typical Saturn Girl, Cosmic Boy, and Lightning Lad, even though Saturn Girl is present. Who's the one all the way there? Is that Polar Boy? Or I can't see who's like right by Mon-El, because I don't actually own this. So is it Sun Boy? I don't know who that is. Oh no, Polar Boy's down there, so it's not Polar Boy.
Oh yeah, who's in the background there? I see.
In the sun there. I'd have to look at a colorized
version of this. I think that's Chameleon Boy.
Okay, that's odd.
Just based on the costume, it's hard to see.
But if you think about the reflection of the Legion book at that time, well, it kind of makes sense that Cosmic Boy and Lightning Lad wouldn't be there, right? Yeah. I think it works. I think it's a great image. We recognize these characters because we're so knee deep in them,
right?
And if the portfolio is meant to be kind of like a companion piece to the comics, well, Perez already drew everybody plus when it came to the Legion. So Lytle can be like, all right, I'll just focus on a few here.
Yeah. So do you think are these his favorite characters, or
could be? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that Sensor Girl isn't more prominent.
I thought the same thing.
Case. Yeah.
Yeah, and Tellus for that matter, since he co-created that character.
Right. I think he just really likes Quizlet too.
Yeah. Well, that image of him, I don't know, possessing the I don't know what to form that lizard-looking creature. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. And this kind of speaks to who we've been paying attention to somewhat in the Baxter run. All of the characters. Ultra Boy and Phantom Girl up there. Invisible Kid. Polar Boy. Yeah, it kind of makes sense. Wildfire is a fan favorite.
Yeah.
Mon-El. Not so much Dawnstar. But she looks good, right? If you're going to draw her, you're going to...
Artists really seem to like that character.
Yeah. It's fun to draw. Wings must be fun to draw.
Wings or something else, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's good. It's a good image. I'm surprised I don't own this because, it's got a Wonder Woman by Perez plate in it. How do I not own this?
Yeah. Well, I didn't even know about it until you brought it to my attention. So
Okay.
somehow I missed this totally in, what'd you say? When did this come out? 80.
It's 86, 87, somewhere in
Yeah.
there. Definitely by 87.
And I have the George Perez portfolio from around that same time with the Batman and Titan stuff. So yeah, I have no idea how I missed this. It's unfortunate. I would have bought it for sure.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's terribly hard to find. Joe Kubert, Keith Giffen, Dr. Fate.
Yeah, that is one of my favorites. The Giffen one, the Perez one, and the Lytle.
Yeah, I gotta get my hands on that.
You know, I realize what you said about them kind of traversing through the past or the history of the DC universe in this. Although the Freaks one is just like totally, well, they should not have included that. I'm sure it was just to appease John Byrne, but I find it curious that they don't include a Titans one. It makes sense because the Trinity here represent the present of the DC universe, but given that Titans was one of the best-selling titles in the company, its absence is peculiar.
That's just us being selfish. Put them everywhere. Yeah, especially at that time. So yeah, kind of fun just to be able to talk about Lytle for a little bit.
Yeah.
All right, and then we're going to wrap up here. Eric has some things that we're going to wrap up this episode with.
Yeah, I got, you had mentioned no Who's Who, but we do have a Who's Who reference in this episode. I got some feedback from listener Adrian, who left a comment at my website when episode 32 was posted there. And so he just wanted to say, thanks for the kind words about Zoom and his work. Speaking of, a new digital copy of Zoom's Who, based on the latest and final printed edition and streamlined for the comic book reader app, is available at the Fire and Water podcast website. And I will include a link in the show notes for that. So I just want to thank Adrian for that. I did so on my website, but I wanted to make sure that we acknowledge that as well, considering that that Zoom's Who, again, like the history of the DC Universe portfolio, I didn't know about until just recently. I think, Peter, you were the one who told me about it too. So I now have that updated version, and I was looking at it last week, in fact. So it looks really good. So thanks, Adrian.
Was that everything?
I think it is. I think we've covered everything that we had prepared for this episode.
I think we're both sort of like, oh, I guess we're done, because we're normally talking for another hour after that, right?
It's so weird. We don't have the usual stuff to fill up our post issue discussion.
Less homework to do, which is always fun.
I kind of missed it.
Well, we'll be back next episode, to cover Legion of Superheroes issue number 35. We're going to see how this puppy all wraps up.
The final chapter.
I do not remember, even though I've read it before, I do not remember the beats. So we'll see if all of our questions get answered.
Well, I'm very skeptical at this point, because there's a lot of stuff that has to happen in this final chapter. And it's not oversized or anything. But I'm very much looking forward to it. I have not read the issue at all.
Right.
I was waiting until you and I had this discussion about issue 34 before I dove into issue 35. So I'm very anxious to read that issue.
Good. So am I. I'm this was a dip for me, so I want to try to. I hope we go out. I hope the excitement of the first chapter kicks in, because if not, then I guess we got to go wait till the Superboy story. Feel good again about these issues. So
yeah. Let's see if Levitz heeds Rex's call.
Stick that landing, Levitz.
That's right.
All right. Well, this has been fun. Happy 2022, everybody.
Yes. Hope it's better than your 2021.
2020, 2021, all of it.
Yeah.
We're here. We're going to keep going. If you read the Universo project and you know the ending, why don't you send us an email, which you can do at peter@thedailyrios.com.
Or you can send email to me at longboxreview@gmail.com.
We'll see you next time, and
Long live the Legion Project Podcast.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.